Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's executive. Do we have any apologies?
Yes, Convener, apologies have been submitted by Bailey Buchanan.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have any declarations of interest? No, and at the moment that's fine. Move on to the minute of the executive held on the 30th of March. These have already been circulated. Are we happy to approve?
Agreed.
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 Okay, thank you. It takes us to the rolling action log, and I'll turn to Mr. Moody.
Thank you, Convener. And as usual, the rolling action log records those decisions of the executive where a report has been called for and gives information on the progress to the expected reporting date. The rolling action log is up to date. There are comments where the expected reporting date hasn't been made. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moody. There is also the opportunity to ask any questions in relation to any items on the rolling action log. I'll open it up. Thanks, Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. The first question I have is in relation to item 698, the question of tackling abuse and intimidation, the motion that came up from the Joe Cox issue. I'm just a little concerned about the time it's been taking and the fact that we've missed the deadline, particularly given recent issues about the abuse that some members have reported having. I wonder if you could say a little bit more about the progress on this and why it's taking so long.
Okay, Mr. Moody.
Thank you, Convener. Yes, there have been a number of meetings arranged which, for a variety of reasons, which I won't enumerate, haven't been able to take place. But I understand there is a meeting of the sounding board taking place immediately after this meeting, so I anticipate progress will increase significantly in light of that meeting.
Thank you. I'd also like to ask for an update on item 707 on the new town hall. Again, this is an issue which it does seem that expecting another report in 2026 is quite far away. We know that there's activity going on at Calendar Square and to prepare the area. And I wonder if we could have some update on how the consultation is proceeding, and are we going to get some updates between now and then, because it does seem that we need, the public needs and we need to know that there is action being taken and that it's not just another one of these things that's sitting in a corner somewhere.
Mr. Kirkpatrick.
Convener, members can be assured that it's not sitting in a corner somewhere, as Councillor Hannah notes. There is significant progress on site. There's also been a lot of progress in the background ongoing in terms of liaison with services and engagement with services. There's also the development of our new web portal, which will provide updates to the community. We've also developed our engagement and communication strategy, which we're looking to deploy after the Easter break and into May, and that will take us through the summer, as highlighted in the previous report. With us when we get to autumn, then entering into the pre-application consultation period, where again there'll be further updates provided, probably in the form of members' briefings at that point. We will then carry on through that process, which will then crystallise finalised design elements and things like that, for us to bring back a comprehensive report to elected members to align with budget decisions in the new year.
Thank you for that. I think it is really important that both members and the public are kept informed of the progress on this one. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Sinclair, then Councillor Nimmo.
No, it was already been raised. It was in relation to the sound online. Thank you.
Councillor Nimmo.
Thanks, Convener. Just a question in relation to the second last item. 708 is the ID number, Closed Community Sport and Leisure Facilities Update. Can we just get it confirmed when we'll be getting a report back in relation to this for Grangemouth? I know there's obviously significant proposals in the pipe?
Convener, the proposed community sport and leisure facilities, the specific action of this actually relates to the sports wings for the Braes in particular, where the intention is to come back in December. In relation to the PDSP work that was done previously, which identified 2 new regional hubs, for want of a better term, for Falkirk and Grangemouth. Work is still to commence on those. As previously highlighted when we were doing that report, first stage of the rollout of community sport and leisure facilities would be the smaller hubs, and then the focus would be on the regional ones.
Paul, do we have a time frame for coming back with that?
I think the intention is for the end of the year is to make that report as highlighted in the rolling action law.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Convener.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further questions in relation to the rolling action log, move on to the referral from the Corporate Partnership Forum. We have no amendments, therefore there is no debate, but I will open this up for questions in the first instance, and it's in relation to the update on the health and safety policy. Are there any questions from any members? Councillor Hannah?
Thank you, Convener. This is obviously a kind of regular and uncontroversial item, but I wonder if officers could please maybe say just a little bit more about the changes that there have been and the consultation process.
Colin?
Thank you, yes. And as this is a referral from the Corporate Partnership Forum, it has been fully consulted on both with employees and also with the trade unions directly. And it hasn't raised any issues of concern for the unions, which I think is an important factor in the referral to the executive today. In terms of the actual changes to the policy itself, these are outlined at 5.2 within the report. It isn't a substantial change to the current policy or the particular strategic direction in relation to health and safety within the council. It's more of an update to reflect changes within the council itself. So for as an example, the previous policy referred to the corporate risk management group. That's no longer a group in existence. So the policy has been updated to reflect current reporting lines and responsibilities within the council and to clarify these where possible. So it's not a substantial change.
Thank you. Thank you to all who have been involved in it.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further questions in moving the report, I don't intend to say very much. As has been explained by Colin, it's a relatively minor change that's been made in the health and safety policy, but it's important that all policies are regularly reviewed and updated to ensure that they're current and reflective of the needs of the service, and this one in particular protecting our workforce. So I'm happy to move the report as it is.
Happy saying.
Thank you. Happy to agree?
Agreed.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Moving on now to item 6, which is the Equality Outcomes and Mainstreaming Report. And again, as there is no amendment, there is no debate. I'll therefore open up for questions. I've got a couple that I'm going to start with, and welcome to Sally, who is going to be supporting this report today. The equality outcomes are important aims for the council services to work with going forward, but there are challenges with the increasing demands and reducing budgets. How can we make sure that these remain a priority and are not forgotten about, and we see the progress that is required?
Thank you for that question, and I hope you can hear me okay. Yeah, no, I think that's a really good question, and it's a point that we've given a fair bit of consideration to. I really want to make sure that these equality outcomes and indeed our mainstreaming duties are something that really is embedded across all our services and isn't something that we only look at every couple of years as we do these reports. With that in mind, we've already had conversations with the new performance manager who's come into the council to look at how we can add actions and make sure that these are captured as part of our regular reporting on our Pentana system, so that actually we are looking at them perhaps on a quarterly or at least annual basis, but potentially quarterly, so that we're providing updates as we go, and that way keeping them at the forefront of officers' minds as we go about our daily business, which is what we should be doing for mainstreaming.
Thank you for that. It's just a wee bit more just drawn out of that we have a commitment to making sure that our staff don't experience inequalities. How do we make sure that we are actually improving on the impacts or disproving the impacts, removing the impacts of inequalities within our workforce?
Within the workforce itself, I think we need to look at the data that we have and also look at feedback that we get from colleagues. We are looking at things like setting up a kind of inclusion network across the council, and a report has been drafted on that, which will give us some feedback from colleagues alongside the stats that we report on a regular basis. I know Jackie's also in the call. I don't know whether Jackie McCauley would like to comment on anything on that one.
Jackie, you want to come in?
Hi, sorry, I probably don't have much more to add to what Sally has said. We're looking to gather as much information as we can about our employee protected characteristics, and that's included in our outcomes. And by gathering that information, we should have more to be able to report on.
Thank you for that. And my final question relates to the fact that we included within our decision to add care and experience to the groups as part of our equality and poverty impact assessment. And we've also looked to embed children's rights across the schools, with 88% of the schools having achieved the bronze, silver or gold rights respecting schools. How do we make sure that we continue our good work in a coordinated and consistent way across the council, given just how complex human rights work is in relation to particularly new legislation? It's a big question, I appreciate that, but I don't know whether some of the other services may also want to comment individually as well.
I'm happy to come in first, although I do feel bad that I possibly stole Jackie's thunder on the last one and then dropped her in it. In terms of making sure we've got a coordinated approach to this and keeping on top of it, we have now got our Equality and Human Rights Working Group re-established. That group has been meeting over the last year, and I think it's working really well now. It's got commitment across all our services, and through that group, we are looking at what we need to do. We're looking at how we do that in a coordinated way, and we're taking cognizance of any new legislation as it comes along. We're developing that approach and looking at subgroups now. So we plan to have a data subgroup that's looking at how we improve our data across all our services, across using national data to really support our assessment, support what we're doing. And we're looking at a subgroup around the child rights and making sure that we're implementing that fully across our council services. So I think through that group, that is a really important key group for us. I think that group with representation across all services is an important part of making sure that we are doing this properly and right and in a coordinated and efficient way.
Thank you for that, Sally. I don't know whether Deborah or any of the other services want to come in and make any comment.
Morning. Just to say that we have a QIO who is focusing particularly on equity, and any involvement in the wider work would be appreciated from our part. Certainly children's rights, we have a strong focus on education, but as you say, it's making sure that everybody is cited on children's rights and it's not just a children's services responsibility. So certainly looking at the work we're doing within our schools and the rights respecting schools is a kind of avenue to recognise that, but actually more widely how we then support the work more widely of the council as well. And as I say, we have somebody assigned specifically to take forward the work that we need to do as well as a service.
Thank you. Karen?
Yes, convener, just to add to that, I think Yes, it is an area where we are working to expand the work that we, all services do, as Deborah said. I think one of the really important things, though, is that we have discussed this at our senior leadership group, which involves the directors and the heads of service. We have identified a training need there, so there will be training delivered to be able to support that sort of rollout right across the council to make sure that all officers, when they're considering different changes and policies, are engaged in ensuring that they take account of children's rights as well.
Okay, thank you for that, Karen. I'll go to Councillor Murtagh and then I've got Councillor Hannah.
Thanks, Convener, and excuse my voice a little bit this morning. I think some of the questions I maybe had about children's rights, and specifically with regards to UNCRC implementation, I don't know if Sally can say any more specifically about if we're embedding children's rights across the service, but how in particular we're looking at what the impact of our Section 6 duties in terms of incorporation of UNCRC, how if there's a training need there, how the particular requirements of UNCRC incorporation are being dealt with in the council.
I think I got that question. Apologies, the sound quality isn't great. I hear folks saying that from the online side, and now I'm experiencing it in the room. In terms of implementation of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, I think we need to look at how we are doing that across all our services. We have already taken some early steps on that. We had agreement last year to add in child rights screening into our equality and poverty impact assessments, and we're just carrying out development work just now to get those screening questions added in. That will identify where something is expected to have a significant impact on children or children and young people, and then require a further assessment at that point. I think we need to look further at our consultation, both around child rights and a wider EPIA as well, to support that and support our community's approach. And I think we are looking at some further training around that, joint with our communities team, our equality and poverty impact assessment team. And I think that needs to reach into children's services and build on some of the great work that they've done in the schools as well. We do need to look at training for all officers on child rights and really making sure that we are getting this right. But I think it is a growing area for all councils, and I think we're all getting our heads around how to do this. We have been reluctant to jump straight into fully integrating impact assessments and looking at that across everything, because I think there's a risk then that we are trying to do too much and break the system by piling too much on if that's not required. So I think we're trying to learn from what we have done, learn from our approach over the next year or so, and review that as we go to inform where we go on from there.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And I know obviously from much of the valuable work that you do, and meeting with you from an equality champion point of view, just how much constant learning there is going on in development. Within the report, we talked about the development of the new EPIA system, or a revised EPIA system. And I'm not going to rehearse the issues we had at budget and the commitment that's been made in the budget motion to look at that. But can you summarise maybe, what, in terms of the EPIA revision, how that will help us, particularly in the mainstreaming, and where you see like the important areas of development in that EPIA revision?
Thank you for that. I think the system we've got just now is very, very good, but it does feel quite complex as a user. And I spend a lot of time on the system given my role, and I've kind of got my head around it now, but I appreciate for officers who come in and do this maybe, once a year, dependent on what their role is, it is a complex system. We've made really great progress, I think, with our committee planning system, which we use internally within the council around reports. And I think it is really simple, really easy to use. And I would like us to have an EPIA system that mirrors that and possibly links into that system as well, because some of the aspects around timescales and things actually are, applied to both. So we're looking at trying to develop a system that's far more user-friendly and therefore makes it easier for people to get their heads around what they need to do with EPIAs, which ultimately should improve the quality of our assessments going forward. That's the vision and that's the hope. I think there's a number of different areas that we are grappling with around EPIAs. For example, proportionality, where, sometimes it feels like quite a big hurdle to do them. And I think that at risk of putting officers off, whereas I think I've seen some really nice kind of lighter EPIAs come through that demonstrate that we have thought about this. Therefore, issues that are less significant, but actually it shows that we've thought about it, we've used the information that we know, and we've considered the different angles. And I think we need to get better at finding ways to carry out proportionate EPIAs so that we can do them quickly, rapidly, so that staff are getting more used to them and more familiar with them. And the key bit for me, which I'm afraid I think everyone's getting bored of hearing me saying, is we need to start them much earlier in our processes. And I think that will really, really help us. They should be a tool that we use to help us develop our proposals and improve those proposals as we go. And the more that we can take that approach, I think ultimately that will really improve things for everybody.
That's great. And I'm 100% with you on banging that same drum about starting them as early as possible. I think what I don't want to, I can take many questions offline and in the development of the work that's ongoing. But I just want to take this opportunity to ask, because you mentioned about that, EPIA process, and one thing that often frustrates me is this idea that EPIAs are only for committee decisions, and that actually EPIAs in themselves, there can be many things which are operational that elected members never get involved in, but that actually when we do policy changes and service level changes, the EPIA process also applies, not always, but mostly with those changes as well. Can you confirm how that works?
I agree that they are required for operational decisions, but I am aware we have done some for operational stuff. Excuse the word, not being very technical, but we have done them. I think that's an area, again, that as we become far more au fait with doing these, is probably an area that we need to look at and make sure that we are doing them for everything that does require them. But I am aware that we have done some, and I think that is helpful. It's the right thing to do.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. A number of issues have already been covered in your answers. I won't go back to all of that. I wonder if you'd like to say a wee bit more about, there has been considerable improvement over the time that I've been a councillor in terms of the EPIAs, in terms of the process, in terms of the information we're being given. But there are still problems with that. And I wonder if you'd like to say a wee bit more about how you're going to ensure that the EPI process is started at that first stage, at that very early stage, because sometimes we're not seeing that happening.
I would love it if I could ensure that it is. I can certainly, we are doing our best to get that message across. So there is extensive training being rolled out across all 3 council divisions just now around EPIAs, and I think one of the key messages as part of that training is you can't start this too early. As soon as you're looking at something, then actually you need to start thinking about that EPIA. Included within that, I think there's an ask of managers, of senior officials, and I've already had this conversation with our senior leadership group about keeping the EPIAs on the agenda as we're developing proposals, reminding staff we need to do them. Are you thinking about them? What data are you collecting? Myself and my team have offered and will continue to offer our help at the start. So come and talk to us if you want about how you're looking at doing this, about how we might help, about what data you should be collecting, how we make sure we're engaging with people and we're collecting the data that we need as we do that engagement. So I think all of that should help. Covering it on the training is a really strong message as part of that training that, you can't do this too early. That's also where I had mentioned that linking through to the committee report system as well, because I think it is already flagged as part of that system, but we can perhaps strengthen that and kind of make sure that we're reminding people through that system that the EPIA is required and you need to start working on it.
Thank you. Thank you, Convener.
Okay, thank you. I see no further questions, therefore we'll turn to the report. There's a statutory duty to produce a report every 2 years, with the last report being in 23. This is therefore the next iteration of what is due by the end of April. There's a lot of detail within the report, and I'm sure members have found that interesting, and it measures our progress towards delivering on the agreed outcomes and how equalities are being mainstreamed, and in the way it helps to support the Council Plan priorities, specifically around supporting stronger and healthier communities and the promotion of educational attainment and reducing inequalities. The report demonstrates what progress there has been over the last few years and sets out the direction of travel for the future. And this has been based on the data collected and the engagement with the services, with clear outcomes as detailed in 4.4. It will support a number of identified areas for improvement, including equality impact assessment, education and skills and employment, as well as disabilities. And the report uses some case studies to help illustrate the progress that has been made and to learn from those experiences. While there has been improvement and progress made in many areas, there is more work to be done, and the action tracker demonstrates the progress and proposes 5 new equality outcomes to work towards, with key milestones which will support the delivery of the Council Plan, particularly around our stronger communities where inequalities are reduced and lives are improved, making Falkirk a fairer place for everyone. I therefore move the report.
Happy to second, Convener.
Thank you, Councillor Devine. Are we happy to agree?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you, colleagues. We now move into a regulatory function in relation to the last item on our agenda this morning, and it is the community benefit lease for the Grangemouth Stadium. And I will go to Mr. Kettrick to move the report.
Thank you, Convener.
Sorry, to speak to the report.
Thank you, Convener. Whilst this is a quasi-regulatory report in one aspect, which is the demonstration of best value and the application of the disposal of land regulations, community benefit leases can be considered as general business as opposed to asset transfer. However, happy to present the report. The proposal today is to approve a 1-year community benefit licence with the option for a further year extension for Grangemouth Stadium, and to agree that that is for the sum of £1 and will commence from the 1st of June to allow transition arrangements to take place. Complex is currently closed, that's the buildings. However, we have enabled access to the track and inner field and parking for local athletics groups to continue with their training activity. Elements of the report you will see highlighted include the agreement of financial support of up to £120,000 of revenue, which supports reactive and cyclical maintenance, the establishment of the community trust and initial running costs for the periods for the next 2 years. And note that subject to the negotiations with the new trust, there is a proposal to invest approximately £350,000 in the facility, which will involve the recommissioning of 2 changing rooms and improvements to the structure of the property. The works are intended to take place now, and indeed some have already commenced, and they will complete after occupancy is taken by the trust. Assessments undertaken by officers have assessed that the proposals are compatible with the disposal of land by local authorities. Scotland Regulations 2010. The property does form part of the SPR, and we see this as a stepping stone towards a full asset transfer. Members are asked to also instruct and authorise the Director of Police Services to negotiate and agree and conclude all necessary agreements, which would include the inventory of equipment that will transfer to the group. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kettrick. So I'll open it up now firstly for questions. Councillor Garner.
Thank you, Convener. Paul, given the good working relationships which I've witnessed on occasion at meetings with Scottish Athletics, can you advise on the position of the equipment that was apparently donated as part of the Commonwealth Games legacy, given the recent speculation in media into it?
Convener, it's an unfortunate circumstance that there was confusion around the equipment that was gifted as part of the Commonwealth Games, but I can assure members that all elements that were gifted that remain there because it was a long time ago and that are recorded will be transferred part of the transfer of the asset.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Spears, questions?
Thank you. It's in the same vein as Councillor Gardner's. I was pretty disappointed to read on social media where people were saying it was stolen. Can we ascertain the amount of equipment, how long it was taken away for, and has it been returned now?
Convener, to give the context, there is a weekly liaison meeting with Scottish Athletics at the new Grangemouth Community Sports Trust, and an agreed inventory was in the process of being finalised. In accordance with the SPR, where we vacate a building, there is elements of equipment that are left and elements of equipment that are redeployed within our existing estate. The elements from the Commonwealth Games are fairly minor, some weights, benches, and some minor equipment. And we also have to recognise that this is old equipment. It's not new, certainly not to the value of £50,000 as was widely reported. And it's unfortunate that groups chose to go to social media rather than raising this matter through the appropriate forum, which is the weekly meeting with Scottish Athletics and the Trust. However, in terms of the equipment, I can assure members that if it's not already been returned, it will be returned in time for the asset transfer taking place. But as I would highlight, it is relatively minor equipment in the grand scheme of the transfer of the asset and all the other equipment and elements that are being transferred.
Okay, thank you very much, but you've certainly gave local elected members a busy week.
Okay, Councillor Nimmo.
Thanks, Convener. We welcome the report. Just a number of questions. Paul, stadium building, there's been a lot of speculation in social media about the windows being boarded up. What information have we made available to the public prior to the building being closed for the upgrade?
There has been active engagement with the user groups through colleagues in sport and leisure. There's been notices placed in the building also. And as I advised, in terms of the athletics training activities, we have agreed that we have put temporary toilets in and things like that. So there has been engagement with groups. Through Grangemouth Community Sports Trust, we know they have also been engaging with groups to reassure them that these are transitional arrangements. And on the boarding up, the reason that the building is being boarded up is twofold. One, to support the works that are being undertaken, and also the second part, and the most important part, is to secure the building and to ensure that it isn't subject to vandalism, because it is a prominent building locally, and we know from experience on the SPR that if we don't put security measures in place, it can become a target for vandalism, and that would lead to further works being required in advance of an asset transfer coming forward, or indeed the community benefit licence from the 1st of June.
Okay, thanks for that, Paul. Takes me on to my next question. I believe that the stadium building is due to reopen in June. Is there any possibility that it can be opened prior to that so that the user groups can have access?
We're currently working with the Grangemouth Community Sports Trust, and it may open a few weeks earlier. However, that will be reliant on works being completed and them being completely mobilised and ready to take it on. At the moment, they are recruiting for a manager post, so an element of it will be reliant on that process also.
Okay, thanks for that. My next question is just in relation to the funding. I believe we've earmarked £1 million. Now, just wondering, is this only going to become available when the community asset transfer is signed? Because I think we're looking for Scottish Athletics to match fund this as well.
I'm unsure where the figure of £1 million is. We've highlighted in the report. The intention is there'll be up to £350,000 worth of works that have been identified, undertaken, and up to £120,000 of revenue support in the first year. Any other further discussions would be at this stage probably premature in advance of any asset transfer.
I think Mr. Benny wants to come in maybe on that.
Through you, Convener. just to be clear, officers put forward a proposed recommendation for how service concessions could be allocated to the budget meeting. And within that was a proposed £1 million allocation for Grangemouth Stadium. That allocation of service concessions wasn't approved at the budget meeting. So that's not that it has been rejected in my mind, but it wasn't endorsed. So that matter, in my mind, sits to the side until we resume at the council budget meeting in February, at which there will be another opportunity for elected members to endorse that proposal. But obviously that commitment was completely based on the council being in a financially sustainable position, because it's service concessions, and the guidance from Amanda is that we shouldn't be accessing those service concessions for investment until the council's in a financially sustainable position. That's all been explained to, well, I've had that conversation with Scottish Athletics. Appreciate the trust is a wider group than just Scottish Athletics, but I think they're aware of that position, and that money, in my view, is being made available to them to allow them to seek match funding. It wasn't being put forward as a you have to get match funding or you can't get the £1 million. So there's quite a few steps to go through, but that was the position of officers. Happy to answer any other questions.
Thanks for that, Malcolm. Just on the back of that, as far as the new Grangemouth Community Sports Trust is concerned, who actually sits on that?
There's a variety of members on there who all have substantial experience related to both athletics activity, sporting activity and business activities, including human resources. Happy to provide a list of to elected members of who the current trustees are, but we do know that they're also actively recruiting for other members to come on.
That'd be great if you could forward that on, Paul. My last question is in relation to the EPIA. It mentions an input from INEOS Forth Ports. Can you just confirm what input they've actually had in this process so far?
To date, it has been that they have been approached for support in the longer term by Grangemouth Community Sports Trust, and that may lead to some funding being available or sponsorship. But again, it would probably be premature. That's probably going to be more reliant on the asset transfer aspect.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further questions, I think that we're all very pleased to see this particular item come forward. It's been a lot of work, and I thank officers for the time and efforts that they have put in so far, and continue to work with the Sports Trust in order to make sure that that community benefit comes to fruition, and that there is the facility continue to be operational in the Grangemouth area. So I'm happy to move the report. Councillor Dana?
Happy to.
We're happy to agree?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. That brings us to the end of this morning's meeting. So we're probably a bit eatsy peaksy then, James. But thanks very much, everybody, for their time this morning.